Since the dawn of spaceflight in the 1950s, America has been at the forefront of space exploration. Whether it's the Apollo 11 landing on the Moon, the International Space Station, Voyager, or the Mars rover, America continues to boldly go where no human has gone before. The American space program can be classified into two distinct strategies: uncrewed and crewed. Tonight, in part 1, we will explore the first missions of both programs. And if you like this video, please comment and subscribe for more. Project Vanguard, 1958. Project Vanguard was a program managed by the United States Naval Research Laboratory, which intended to launch the first artificial satellite into low Earth orbit using a Vanguard rocket. The program had 3 objectives. 1. Place a satellite into orbit during the International Geophysical Year. Accomplish a scientific experiment in orbit. And lastly, track the satellite and ensure its attainment of orbit. To maintain relationships with the other space venturing countries, the Navy proposed the satellite clearly have a civilian and scientific mission rather than defensive. The payload included 7 mercury cell batteries in a hermetically sealed container, 2 tracking radio transmitters, a temperature-sensitive crystal, and 6 clusters of solar cells on the surface of the sphere. The first satellite was called Vanguard TV-3. On December 6th, an attempt was made to launch the TV-3 rocket. The Vanguard rocket rose about 4 feet into the air when the engine lost thrust, and the rocket immediately sank back down to the launch pad and exploded. On March 17, 1958, the program successfully launched the Vanguard satellite TV-4. The new rocket achieved a stable orbit of 2,466 miles above the Earth's surface. It was even estimated that it would remain in orbit for at least 240 years. And it was renamed Vanguard 1, which, in addition to its upper launch stage, remains the oldest human-made satellite still in orbit today. The Vanguard project eventually met its scientific objectives, providing a wealth of information on the size and shape of the Earth, density of the air, and temperature ranges. The Vanguard 1 radio continued to transmit until 1964. Tracking data obtained with this satellite revealed that the Earth is not quite a perfect sphere. It's actually slightly pear-shaped. It corrected ideas about the atmosphere's density at high altitudes and improved the accuracy of world maps. The Vanguard program was transferred to NASA when the agency was created in the mid-1950s. Next, we will explore the first crewed mission into space. The North American X15 in the 1960s. The North American X15 was a hypersonic rocket-powered aircraft operated by the United States Air Force and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration as part of the X-plane series of experimental aircraft. The program gathered critical flight data that made human spaceflight and future hypersonic aircraft possible. The X-15 program demonstrated man's ability to control a high-performance vehicle in a near-space environment. The X-15 set speed and altitude records in the 1960s, reaching the edge of outer space and returning with valuable data used in aircraft and spacecraft design. During the X-15 program, 12 pilots flew in a combined 199 flights. Of these, 8 pilots flew a combined 13 flights, which met the Air Force's spaceflight criteria by exceeding the altitude of 50 miles, thus qualifying these pilots as being the first ever American astronauts. The first X-15 flight was an unpowered glide flight by Scott Crossfield on June 8th, 1959. Crossfield also piloted the first powered flight in that same year, and his first rocket-powered flight in November 1960 took place. 12 test pilots flew the X-15. Among these were Neil Armstrong, later a NASA astronaut, and later a commander of NASA Space Shuttle missions. In 1963, pilot Joe Walker exceeded 100 kilometers in altitude, joining NASA astronauts and Soviet cosmonauts as the first ever human beings to cross that line on their way to outer space. The United States Air Force awarded astronaut wings to anyone achieving an altitude of greater than 50 miles. Sadly, on November 15th, 1967, U.S. Air Force test pilot Michael J. Adams was killed during X-15 Flight 191. On May 8th, 2004, a monument was erected at the cockpit's location in California. The 200th flight over Nevada was first scheduled for November 21st, 1968, to be flown by William Pete Knight. Numerous technical problems and outbreaks of bad weather delayed this proposed flight 6 times, and it was permanently canceled on December 20th, 1968. And that, my friends, was the first missions, crewed and uncrewed, of the American space.